Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about what you need to look for when it comes time to buy a car. When is the best time to buy a vehicle, a car? And the reason why I'm doing this video is because in my Patreon group, this is what was suggested by Sing Tao. So if you don't know this already, I have a Patreon page, and when you're part of it, you become part of a spiritual community. And it's live, it's interactive. I have classes, live classes, Zoom classes every week with everyone, shooting stars, and you get to tell me what you want me to do videos on. As well as you get my magazines, so many opportunities. So go to galacticcenter.org, check out Patreon. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter, and you will get all of my predictions delivered free to your email every week. And one more thing, don't forget about my Galactic Planner. This is an amazing tool. You will get your own personal birth chart calculated and all the predictions for your chart delivered to your calendar, so every day you can have the guidance from the stars. So let's get going. I want to talk about what you will look for when you want to purchase a vehicle, a car. So in Vedic astrology, what you have to know, the planet that actually rules vehicles is Venus. And you wouldn't think, Venus, well, Venus rules luxuries. And to have a car, by the way, it is a luxury for most people in the world. And the fourth house is the house that is actually relative to vehicles. And it's called in Vedic astrology, fixed assets. So the fourth house, and what you're going to be looking for, if you know how to follow astrology, otherwise just get a professional. But if you look at your own birth chart and you look at your fourth house, whenever the transit of Venus goes through your fourth house, that would be the time to purchase a vehicle. So let me just go through all the different ascendants and what your fourth house would be. So if you have an Aries ascendant, and you can also look at it from the moon or ascendant, then Cancer, when Venus is in Cancer, it's the best time for you to buy a car. If you have a Taurus rising, then Leo, when Venus is in Leo, it's the best time for you to buy a car. I'm talking where the planet Venus is in the sky, not in your natal chart, in the sky, where it's transiting and moving through the signs. And by the way, Venus goes through a sign per month. Every month it changes signs. So you're going to want to look for that month when Venus is in the fourth house. So if you have a Gemini rising, then when Venus is in Virgo, is the best time to buy a car. Although it is debilitated in Virgo, so you don't have as easy of a chance of getting a great car. And you know, that's kind of ironic too, because I'm a Gemini rising, and I've been notorious at getting lemons for cars, let me just tell you, in my life. So if you have a Cancer rising, then when Venus is in Libra, you should get a car. Then if you have a Leo rising, then when Venus is in Scorpio, you should get a car. So if you have a Virgo rising or moon, yes, on all of them I mean the moon too, then when Venus is in Sagittarius, that's the best time to get a car. If your moon or your ascendant's in Libra, then when Venus is in Capricorn, let me continue on. Then if your ascendant or your moon's in Scorpio, then when Venus is in Aquarius, it would be in your fourth house. If you have Sagittarius rising, then when Venus is in Pisces, you could get a car. Then if your ascendant is in Capricorn or your moon, then when Venus is in Aries, you should get a car. Then if your ascendant is in Aquarius, Then when Venus is in Taurus, that would be the best time for you to get a car. And then if your ascendant is in Pisces, when Venus is transiting in Gemini, that's the best time for you to buy a car. Venus is imperative. Now let me explain some other interesting facts about getting a car. I wouldn't personally ever buy a car when Mercury's retrograde. And I'd stay away from Mars being retrograde. And they're retrograde. Mercury's only retrograde for 3 weeks, but 3 times a year. So stay away from that, because that could mean you could get a vehicle that could have problems such as mechanicals. Another thing is Mars deals with machinery. And you're going to find a lot of things break down when Mercury's retrograde. Your car tends to break down a lot. When Mars is retrograde, your car tends to break down a lot. And Mars can be retrograde for about 4 months, give or take a few weeks, but something to that effect. And so you've got to watch out. I would avoid that transit. Now, so Mars and Mercury, do not avoid the time. Sometimes you can't avoid it. And let me just say this, not everybody that buys a car when Mercury is retrograde or Mars is retrograde and they get a lemon, but I would just avoid it, okay, if you can. And the other thing is, there's some other very interesting things about certain planets in your 4th house, which would mean the color of the car, of the vehicle that you might end up getting. I find it so interesting. I have Mars in the 4th house. That's probably another reason why I've had bad luck with buying cars. But it's so interesting because my first new car I got was when I graduated from college and my parents bought me a car, okay? And I was very fortunate that my parents could do such a thing for me, but they bought me a red Mustang. Do you understand? Mars is red. So let me go through these different colors. And it was a really cool red, like sports car Mustang, right? Brand new. I was so excited. That was so cool. But Mars is red. So let's go through the different colors of, if you have a particular planet in your 4th house of vehicles, you will tend to buy a car that color. Now, Venus is white. So I find it so interesting that Venus rules vehicles. And most of the cars on the road are white. They're either white or black, right? But it's so interesting that, you know, if you've had a dark car or a light colored car, you're going to discover the light colored cars actually don't show dirt as much. The black ones show all the dirt. The white ones don't as much. So more people have white cars. But with Venus being in the 4th house, you will be drawn to a white car. Venus is white. And if you have Jupiter in the 4th house, you'll be drawn to like a golden color for a car, gold or yellow, yellowish, those kind of tones. If you have Mercury in the 4th house, you'll be drawn to a green colored car. If you have the Sun in the 4th house, you may want an orange reddish colored car. If you have Saturn in the 4th house, you would be drawn to a blue or a black colored car. And you might even find that when these planets are transiting through the 4th house, you could find that you will be attracted to that color of vehicle. Okay, so let me see, what did I miss? I went over Mercury, Mars. Mars is red, Jupiter's yellow, Mercury's green, Venus is white, and I'm missing one, aren't I? Let's see. No, I've got them all. Jupiter, Saturn, Mars. The outer planets do not count. Okay, so those are the colors for the vehicles. Now, let me go another step further. This is very interesting, but this is very, very detailed. Now, When you go into a dasha of a planet that's in the 4th house, you will want to buy a car. Okay? But most of all, there is a divisional chart it's fascinating when you understand this. And it's called the D16, called the Shamsa chart, and it is about vehicles. And it's fascinating because if you have one of those planets in your 4th house, like you have Saturn in the 4th house, you'll probably be drawn to black cars in that divisional chart. Now, what's so interesting is if you go into a dasha of a planet, like let's say you have Venus in the 4th house in your D16 chart, you will buy a white car. It's so interesting the way that works. So, but you definitely have to have somebody that knows what they're doing that can calculate these individual divisional charts, because there's really 30 of them, well 60 of them, but there's 30 of them that most of 16 of them really that are used by astrologers, but there's many of them. But some of them I feel like are so obscure, it's just not going to give you information that's usable. You know, it's more obscure and subtle in their effects. So we're talking about real effects that are physical, that you see happening. So another chart that could be looked at could be the Chumsa chart, which is the D4, because the D4 does deal with vehicles, but I find that the D4 would deal more with real estate, because remember, it's about fixed assets, but vehicles are a fixed asset. So when you're working with these divisional charts, it's actually more about using the dashas. So if you have a dasha lord in the 4th, and you go into that dasha, you know, the grand cycle or the sub-cycle or even the 3rd sub-cycle, then that if you go into a dasha of a planet in the 4th house in that divisional chart, yes, you'll buy a car. And depending on the planet's color will be the color of the car that you're drawn to purchase. So the most important thing, though, is watch those transits through the 4th house in your birth chart. If Jupiter's in the 4th house, yes, it's a good time to buy a car. So that would actually be, let's see, so if you have an Aquarius ascendant, Jupiter is in the 4th house right now for the whole year that it's in Taurus, from May of 2024 through May of 2025. Jupiter in Taurus, you will want to buy a car. And that means Jupiter's transiting your 4th house if you have an Aquarius ascendant this whole year. So that, or another thing is, remember it's fixed assets, you could move. There could be something with real estate. But since this little class is on vehicles, Aquarius risings could be looking at buying a car this year, because Jupiter stays in a sign per year. Now, if you have Saturn in the 4th house, such as if you have Scorpio rising, transiting Saturn's in your 4th house right now, you might find that you need a new car. And that might be difficult, you know, maybe it's breaking down or it's old. Yes. So that's for people with Scorpio ascendants, because transiting Saturn is there. And let me just say, for those of you that have Aries ascendants, or moons, by the way, then Mars is going to be in your 4th house, and this can mean your car can break down, okay? Mars will be in Cancer for a long period of time. It's been in Cancer already for about a month, and it will continue to be in Cancer. I think it was October 20th through January 20th that Mars will be in Cancer. And people that have Aries risings could have car trouble. Then it will go back into Cancer between April till May. So there may be some more car problems for those of you that have Aries as your ascendant. So you see, the 4th house is always going to reflect any times the problems with vehicles, as well as the time to buy a vehicle. So what I'm saying is, for Scorpio rising, you might be forced to buy a car because Saturn's there. Aries rising, you might be forced to buy a car because it might break down. But if you don't have to, don't, because it's not the best time when you have natural malefics in the 4th house. So a few more things. If you have Gemini rising, this means that transiting K2's been in your 4th house for almost a year. And you still got about 6 months to go, a little more than that, all the way. Let me just say, between now and the end of next May of 2025, if you have Gemini rising, you might be looking at buying a new car. You may not want to, but you're forced to, because K2 will take things away. Now, if you have a Sagittarius rising, this means Rahu's been in your 4th house and will continue to be in your 4th house all the way till the end of May of 2025. And you might be possessed to buy a new car. You might have some problems too, but you'll really want to buy a new car. So I hope this has given you a little insight, and every year when the sun and moon go through your 4th house, that could be a time that you're more likely to want to buy a new car as well. But if you can, pick the month that Venus is in your 4th house, and I promise you, you'll make a much better choice, but avoiding the Mars and the Mercury retrogrades, and you'll make a good choice. And you'll be amazed how the color will be what you want according to the planets. That's why so many people have white cars. Venus going through the 4th, best time to buy a car. And of course, Venus can also reflect silvery colors too. And that's the other most popular color of a car, silver, white. Those type of colors are Venus. So I hope you've learned something about astrology, and most of all, when's the best time to buy a car. So I hope you got a lot out of this. Thank you for joining me. And remember, if you want to learn Vedic astrology with me, check out my university. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com. It's all online. You can join the university anytime. Thank you.